The morning sun painted the red rocks gold when the first explosions shattered the peace of Maya's world. She had been collecting water from the sacred spring, just like her grandmother taught her, when the sky started screaming with alien ships. Maya dropped her clay pot and ran toward the village, but she was already too late. Blue fire rained from above, turning her people's homes into ash and smoke. The hegemony had come to New Terra, and they brought death with them. Her grandmother, Elder Running Bear, grabbed Maya's arm with surprising strength for her old hands. "The cave," she whispered urgently. "Go to the ancestors' cave now. Take this." She pressed a small data chip into Maya's palm along with her grandfather's old pistol. "When the time comes, you will know what to do." Maya wanted to stay and fight, but her grandmother's eyes held a command that could not be refused. She ran toward the hidden cave system behind the waterfall, the same place where her people had sheltered during storms for 3 generations. Behind her, the sounds of battle grew louder, then suddenly stopped. From the cave entrance, Maya watched through tears as blue-skinned soldiers in advanced armor walked through her village. They moved with the casual efficiency of exterminators, checking bodies and setting charges on the few buildings still standing. Their leader, a tall alien with silver markings on his face, stood over the bodies with cold satisfaction. "Primitive humans," General Voss said to his lieutenant, his voice carrying clearly in the thin mountain air. "Look at their weapons. Chemical, projectiles, and combustion engines. How did Earth ever convince the Galaxy Council they deserved citizenship?" The lieutenant kicked over Maya's grandfather's hunting rifle. "Should we report any resistance, General?" "What resistance? These people had nothing but ancient firearms and farming tools. The intelligence reports were accurate. Humans are a client species now. Centuries of peace have made them soft." Voss looked around the burning village with disgust. "Clean this up and begin mining operations. The rare earth deposits under this land will fuel our war machine for decades." Maya pressed herself deeper into the cave as the soldiers continued their work. They spoke about her people like they were insects, something to be cleared away for convenience. The data chip in her hand felt warm, and she remembered her grandmother's words about knowing when the time came. Hours passed before the hegemony forces finally left. Their ships rose into the sky with thunderous roars, leaving behind a graveyard where Maya's village had stood that morning. She emerged from the cave, on shaking legs, walking through the ruins of her entire world. 800 people had lived in the Red Canyon settlement. 800 souls who had chosen to make a new life on this distant world, far from Earth's crowded cities. They had been farmers and crafters, teachers and storytellers. They had been her family, her friends, her entire universe. Now they were gone, and she was alone. Maya found her grandmother's body near the village center, still clutching the ancient staff that had belonged to 5 generations of tribal leaders. The old woman's face was peaceful, as if she had accepted what was coming. Maya knelt beside her and whispered the old prayers, the ones that connected her people to the ancestors who had walked among the stars. The data chip felt heavy in her pocket as she buried her grandmother with her own hands. Elder Running Bear had always been mysterious about her past, about the time before she came to New Terra. She had known things about technology and warfare that seemed strange for a tribal elder. Now, Maya began to understand that her grandmother had been keeping secrets, preparing for a day like this. That night, Maya sat in the ruins of her childhood home and inserted the data chip into an old computer terminal. What she found there made her blood run cold and hot at the same time. Technical specifications, weapon designs, and communication codes filled the screen. But these were not the primitive weapons General Voss had mocked. These were blueprints for humanity's real arsenal, the weapons that Earth claimed had been decommissioned centuries ago. Her grandmother's voice echoed in the data files recorded years before. "Maya, if you are seeing this, then they have come for us as I always feared they would. The galaxy thinks humanity is weak because we choose peace. They do not understand that we choose peace because we know the true cost of war. But when innocents are slaughtered, when families are destroyed for greed, then the old ways must return. Maya learned that her grandmother had been Lieutenant Sarah Running Bear of Earth Defense Force, one of the architects of humanity's most classified military programs. When Earth signed the Galactic Peace Accords, officers like her had not disappeared. They had simply faded into the background, taking their knowledge to the frontier worlds, preparing for the day when humanity would need its warriors again. Tiapo. Hegemony believes we are conquered, her grandmother's voice continued. They see our trade ships and farming colonies and think we have forgotten how to fight. They are wrong. We have been learning, adapting, preparing. Every human world has watchers, every settlement has guardians. Touch one of us, and you touch all of us. Maya stood up slowly, her grief transforming into something harder and more dangerous. The hegemony had made a critical error in their intelligence gathering. They had killed her people thinking there would be no consequences, that humans were too weak and scattered to respond. They had no idea that every human settlement was connected by invisible threads of loyalty and shared memory. She looked out, at the Red Canyon where her ancestors had made their home, where children had played and elders had shared stories under alien stars. General Voss thought he had eliminated a problem, cleared away an obstacle to his mining operation. Instead, he had awakened something that had been sleeping in human space for 2 centuries. Maya holstered her grandfather's pistol and began walking toward the communications array the village had used for trade contacts. The equipment was damaged but repairable, and she had work to do. The hegemony wanted to see what human weapons looked like. She was going to give them a demonstration they would never forget. The last daughter of the Red Canyon settlement had a message to send, and when it reached its destination, the galaxy would remember why humanity had once been feared among the stars. The Empire had killed her tribe, but in doing so, they had made their greatest mistake. They had made an enemy of Earth's hidden children, and the sleeping giants were about to wake up angry. 3 months had passed since the massacre, and Maya now wore the gray uniform of a hegemony technical worker. The identification papers she carried claimed she was Anna Webb, a human refugee grateful for employment in the Empire's mining operation. The aliens barely looked at her twice when she walked through their facility. Maya had learned many things during her weeks of careful observation. The hegemony saw humans as useful servants, nothing more. They were good with computers and machinery, patient with repetitive tasks, and best of all, they never caused trouble. The blue-skinned Altarans who ran the operation treated their human workers like smart pets, capable of following complex instructions, but lacking any real initiative or creativity. This blind spot was exactly what Maya needed. As a communications technician, she had access to data streams and transmission equipment that would have been heavily guarded if the aliens suspected humans of having any real technical knowledge. Instead, they let her work alone in the relay stations, trusting that she was too primitive to understand the systems she maintained. They were wrong about that, just like they were wrong about everything else concerning humanity. Maya finished her routine maintenance on the quantum communication array and waited until the facility's night cycle began. Most of the alien staff went to their quarters during this time, leaving only skeleton crews to monitor the automated mining equipment. She activated a carefully prepared subroutine that would loop the security feeds for exactly 37 minutes, giving her a window of invisibility. The quantum transmitter came online with a soft hum that Maya felt in her bones. She had spent weeks modifying the system, routing power through backup circuits, and hiding her additions inside legitimate maintenance protocols. To any casual observer, she was simply running standard diagnostics. In reality, she was establishing a connection that spanned 200 light-years in an instant. The face that appeared on her hidden display was weathered and suspicious, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much combat. Colonel Tom Harrison looked exactly like what he was, a soldier forced into retirement by politics and peace treaties. Maya had found his name in her grandmother's files, listed under Old Wolves Still Hunting. "Who is this?" Tom demanded, his hand moving off-screen toward what Maya assumed was a weapon. "This is a secure military frequency. How did you get access to these codes?" Maya transmitted her genetic identification and the authentication codes. Her grandmother had left her. Tom's expression changed as his computer verified her identity. His shoulders sagged slightly, and when he looked at her again, there was recognition and sadness in his eyes. "You're Sarah's granddaughter." "We heard. About the Red Canyon settlement, I'm sorry, kid. Your grandmother was a good soldier and a better person." Tom rubbed his face with one hand. "What do you need?" Maya had prepared for this moment, but speaking the words still felt like jumping off a cliff. "I need Earth's real weapons, Colonel. The ones that don't exist in any official records, the ones that were supposed to be forgotten when we signed the peace accords." Tom was quiet for a long moment, studying her face through the quantum link. "That's a dangerous request. Even if such things existed, using them would violate every treaty we've signed with the Galactic Council. Earth would be expelled from civilized space." "The hegemony violated those same treaties when they murdered 800 civilians for mining rights," Maya replied. "They think humanity is neutered, that we're dependent on alien protection and too weak to fight back. They need to learn the truth about human nature." Maya transmitted the intelligence data she had been gathering during her months of infiltration. Fleet positions, supply routes, command codes, and tactical assessments filled Tom's screens. His eyes widened as he realized the scope of information she had accessed. "How did you get all this?" he asked. "They don't see us as a threat, so they don't guard against us. Human technicians maintain their computers, human workers process their data, human translators handle their communications. We're invisible because they think we're harmless." Maya leaned closer to the camera. "But you and I both know that's not true, don't we, Colonel?" Tom studied the tactical data with a professional eye. "This information is incredibly detailed. With intelligence like this, a small force could do serious damage to their operations." He paused, his finger drumming against his desk. "The Aurora Project facilities are still intact. Officially, they're historical preservation sites now, museums to humanity's violent past. And unofficially, some old soldiers never learned how to stop being soldiers. We've been maintaining certain capabilities, just in case the galaxy decided that humanity was too useful to remain free." Tom's smile was grim. "Give me 6 months and a good reason to ignore the politicians on Earth." Maya transmitted more data, images of her destroyed village and the casual brutality she had witnessed. "The hegemony is planning to expand their operations. 3 more human colonies are scheduled for resource extraction in the next year. They're going to keep killing our people until someone shows them the cost of touching Earth's children." Tom nodded slowly. "I'll need completely sterile operations. No serial numbers, no Earth signatures, no evidence that links back to us. When this is over, my people were never involved, and these weapons never existed." "Understood. What do you need from me?" "Keep gathering intelligence, but be careful. If they catch you, we can't help you officially." Tom's expression softened slightly. "Sarah would be proud of what you're doing, kid. She always said the hegemony would push too far eventually." Maya felt tears threatening, but she forced them back. Grief was a luxury she could not afford, not yet. "There's something else, Colonel. My grandmother's files mentioned sleeper networks on other worlds, other watchers who have been preparing for this day. There are, scattered across human space, hidden in plain sight. When you're ready to activate them, use the codes Sarah left you. But remember, once you pull that trigger, there's no going back. The galaxy will see humanity's true face, and some of our neighbors might not like what they find." Maya looked out through the facility's windows at the alien ships moving through, space above her dead world. "They should have thought of that before they started murdering families for profit," Tom Harrison's laugh was cold and hard. Agreed. Give me those 6 months, Maya. When I'm done, the hegemony is going to learn why Earth's military was never really disbanded. We just got better at hiding. The transmission ended, leaving Maya alone in the dark communications bay. Around her, the mining facility hummed with alien industry, processing the wealth stolen from her people's graves. But change was coming, carried on invisible signals between the stars. The hegemony thought they were dealing with harmless refugees and grateful workers. They had no idea they were surrounded by the descendants of Earth's most dangerous warriors, people who had been waiting patiently for the perfect moment to remind the galaxy that humanity had never forgotten how to fight. They had just learned how to fight smarter. Admiral Corax stared at his tactical display with growing frustration, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. 3 heavy cruisers had simply vanished from his screens 12 hours ago. Not destroyed, not disabled, just gone. Their last transmission had been routine patrol chatter, then nothing but silence and empty space. Sensor malfunction? He asked his navigation officer, a young Alteran who looked as confused as Corax felt. No, sir. All systems are functioning normally. The ships were there, then they weren't. No debris field, no energy signatures, no distress signals. It's like they never existed. Corax rubbed his temples, trying to ease the headache that had been building all day. Patrol Fleet Delta had been his most experienced squadron, veterans of a dozen conquest campaigns. Ships and crews like that didn't just disappear without explanation, yet the sensor logs showed exactly that impossible event. Meanwhile, Maya walked through the hegemony mining facility with a datapad in her hands, looking like any other human worker going about her routine maintenance duties. The aliens paid her no attention as she updated communication logs and filed technical reports. They had no idea that every piece of information passing through their systems was being copied and transmitted to her hidden allies. Her promotion to senior communications officer had come exactly as she expected. The hegemony valued efficiency above all else, and Maya had made herself invaluable by solving problems before they became crises. Her alien supervisors praised her dedication to the Empire and used her as an example of how human workers should behave. The irony was not lost on her. General Voss arrived at the facility 3 days after the patrol fleet disappeared. He moved through the installation with nervous energy, inspecting security protocols and demanding answers to questions nobody could answer. Maya watched him from the communication center, remembering the casual way he had spoken about her dead people. "Double all security patrols," Voss ordered during the staff briefing. "Something is hunting our ships out there, and I want to know what it is. Increase communication frequencies with all fleet elements. If anything unusual happens, I want to know about it immediately." Maya nodded along with the other human workers, her expression appropriately concerned. Inside, she felt a cold satisfaction. Phase 1 of Tom's plan was working perfectly. The invisible hunters were making the hegemony nervous, forcing them to split their attention and resources. The second attack came during the next week's supply run, a hegemony transport carrying 5,000 troops to pacify another human colony encountered what the survivors described as impossible technology. The enemy ship appeared on sensors for exactly 12 seconds, fired weapons that cut through military shields like they weren't there, then vanished back into hyperspace. "Show me the sensor recordings again," General Voss demanded, his blue skin pale with stress. The tactical officer replayed the engagement data on the main screen. A single contact appeared at extreme range, moving faster than any known ship design. It launched projectiles that seemed to ignore the laws of physics, passing through energy barriers and striking the transport's vital systems with surgical precision. Then it was gone, leaving behind a crippled ship and 3,000 dead soldiers. "What kind of weapons can penetrate our shields like that?" Voss asked. "Unknown technology, sir. The energy signatures don't match anything in our databases. The projectiles appeared to be some kind of exotic matter, possibly artificially generated. Dark matter constructs. Maya took notes in the corner of the briefing room, her stylus moving across the data pad as she recorded the aliens' growing fear. She had learned to read Altaran expressions during her months of infiltration. Voss was beginning to understand that his forces were facing something beyond their experience. The third attack was different. Instead of hitting military targets, the mysterious ships struck at the hegemony's economic infrastructure, mining. Platforms, trade stations, and supply depots began disappearing across the sector. Always the same pattern. Brief sensor contact, devastating weapons fire, then nothing but wreckage and silence. It has to be a new species, Voss declared during an emergency conference with Fleet Command. Some previously unknown civilization, with advanced stealth technology. Deploy long-range reconnaissance probes to all systems. We need to find their homeworld. Maya smiled as she transmitted the new patrol routes to her invisible allies. The hegemony was doing exactly what Tom had predicted they would do. They were looking for enemies in all the wrong places, never suspecting that the threat came from the humans they had dismissed as harmless. Admiral Corax received new orders to hunt down the ghost ships, but his forces found nothing but empty space and radiation shadows. The enemy struck without warning and vanished without trace, always staying one step ahead of hegemony forces. It was like fighting smoke and mirrors, chasing phantoms that existed only long enough to kill. "How are they predicting our movements?" Corax demanded during a strategy meeting. "Every time we position forces to intercept them, they attack somewhere else. It's like they know our plans before we make them." Maya listened to the briefing through hidden microphones she had installed throughout the command center. The answer to Corax's question was simple, but he would never think to look for it. The ghost ships knew hegemony plans because a human technician was reading their communications and passing intelligence to Earth's hidden military. The attacks escalated over the following weeks. Entire hegemony installations went dark overnight, their defenders finding themselves outgunned by weapons that seemed to come from the future. The enemy ships moved like living shadows, striking with precision that suggested intimate knowledge of Altaran tactics and technology. "This is impossible," General Voss said, studying the latest casualty reports. "No known species has this level of technological advancement. The weapons they're using violate half the laws of physics." Maya filed another routine maintenance report, while listening to the aliens struggle with concepts they couldn't understand. The hegemony had built their empire by conquering species that fought conventional wars with predictable tactics. They had never faced an enemy that fought like humans, using deception and misdirection as primary weapons. The breakthrough came when Voss ordered a complete intelligence review of all human colonies in the sector. Maya watched him studying star charts and population surveys, looking for connections between the attacks and human settlements. He was beginning to suspect the truth, but he was still thinking too small. "The attacks always happen near human worlds," he observed. "But that's impossible. Humans don't have military technology. Their weapons are centuries behind ours." "Could they be working with another species?" suggested his intelligence officer. Maya held her breath, waiting to see if the aliens would make the logical leap. But Voss shook his head, dismissing the possibility. "Humans are client species, dependent on galactic protection. They wouldn't risk their status by collaborating with unknown hostiles." He turned away from the star charts. "It must be coincidence. The enemy is using human space as cover because they know we'll hesitate to conduct full military operations near civilian populations." Maya relaxed and continued her work. The hegemory's arrogance was their greatest weakness. They literally could not imagine that humanity had been preparing for this day since the first peace treaty was signed. They saw human workers and farmers and assumed that was all humans could be. They were about to learn the difference between choosing peace and being incapable of war. The ghost ships were just the beginning. Tom Harrison and his people were preparing to show the galaxy what happened when you cornered a species that had spent centuries perfecting the art of hidden warfare. The hegemony had made the oldest mistake in military history. They had underestimated their enemy, and that error was going to cost them everything. General Voss made his decision during the morning briefing, his patience finally exhausted by weeks of mysterious attacks. The holographic display showed 3 human colonies marked in red, their populations listed in cold numbers that meant nothing to him except potential leverage. "We're going to send a message," he announced to his staff officers. "If someone is using human space to hide their operations, then the humans will pay the price for harboring them. Fear will make them cooperate with our investigations." Maya sat in the back of the briefing room, her stylus frozen over her data pad as she heard her people's death sentence pronounced with casual indifference. Haven's Rest, New Birmingham, and Prosperity Station were about to die because General Voss needed to feel like he was in control. "Begin with the smallest settlement," Voss continued. "Haven's Rest has 12,000 inhabitants. A demonstration of imperial justice should encourage the others to be more forthcoming with information about these ghost ships." The room filled with approving murmurs from the Alteran officers. Maya forced her face to remain neutral, but inside, she was screaming. These aliens spoke about mass murder like it was a minor administrative decision. They truly saw humans as nothing more than expendable resources. Maya excused herself from the briefing and walked calmly to her communications station. Once alone, she activated the quantum transmitter and sent an emergency signal across human space. The message was simple and devastating. "Haven's Rest, 12 hours, full population, verify and proceed to final phase." Responses came back within minutes from hidden networks across a dozen worlds. Tom Harrison's face appeared on her secure channel, his expression grim but determined. "Are you certain?" he asked. "I heard the order given. They're going to glass the entire colony to send a message about harboring their enemies." Maya's voice was steady, but Tom could see the fury burning in her eyes. "It's time, Colonel. The galaxy needs to see what humans really are." Tom nodded, slowly. "The Aurora fleet is ready. We've been waiting for this moment for 6 months. Once we show our true strength, there's no going back. The hegemony will know they're at war with Earth." "Good. My people have died in silence long enough." Maya watched through the facility's observation windows as hegemony warships gathered in formation above New Terra. The Sixth Fleet was an impressive sight, 200 vessels representing the Empire's finest military technology. Admiral Corax commanded from his flagship, a massive dreadnought that could crack planets with its main batteries. The fleet departed for Haven's Rest with General Voss aboard the command ship, eager to oversee his demonstration personally. Maya transmitted their exact route and timing to the Aurora fleet, then settled down to wait. Everything now depended on whether Tom Harrison could deliver on his promises. The Battle of Proxima Junction began when the hegemony fleet dropped out of hyperspace, expecting an easy target. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by ships that shouldn't exist, vessels that had appeared from nowhere like materializing nightmares. Admiral Corax stared at his sensors in disbelief as contacts appeared throughout his formation. Sleek, black ships with angular designs that looked nothing like any known technology. They moved with impossible grace, accelerating and turning in ways that should have killed their crews with gravitational forces. "Where did they come from?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. They weren't there when we scanned the system, then they were just there. All stealth systems, all weapon signatures completely unknown." The first salvo from the human fleet turned the hegemory's understanding of warfare upside down. Weapons that seemed to bend space itself, carved through shields and armor like they were paper. Energy beams that ignored conventional defenses struck vital systems with surgical precision. Kinetic projectiles that moved too fast for point defense. Systems to track. "Return fire," Corax ordered, but the human ships were already gone, having struck and vanished back into some impossible stealth field. They appeared fired, and disappeared faster than hegemony computers could target them. General Voss watched from the command deck as his mighty fleet was systematically torn apart by an enemy that fought like ghosts. This is impossible. No species has technology this advanced. Where did these ships come from? The answer came in the form of a transmission broadcast on all frequencies. A human face appeared on every screen in the hegemony fleet, speaking with calm authority that cut through the chaos of battle. I am Admiral Rachel Stone of the Terran Defense Force. You are hereby ordered to withdraw from human space and surrender for war crimes against civilian populations. This is your only warning. Voss stared at the transmission in shock. Terran Defense Force? But humans don't have a military. They signed peace accords, disbanded their fleet centuries ago. Apparently not, Corax replied grimly as another squadron of his ships vanished under precise fire from invisible attackers. We've been fighting phantoms. These are human vessels. The battle lasted exactly 47 minutes. The hegemony's 6th Fleet, the pride of the Imperial Navy, was methodically dismantled by an enemy that seemed to know their every weakness. Human ships appeared from impossible angles, struck with weapons that defied known physics, then vanished. Before return fire could be directed, Admiral Corax's flagship was the last to fall. The massive dreadnought's shields collapsed under a barrage from weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of energy conservation. The bridge split open like a flower, atmosphere venting into space as the ship's spine broke under impossible stresses. Corax's final transmission was confused and defeated. Command, this is Fleet 6. How is this possible? The humans, they were never... How? Maya received the battle reports through her hidden networks as the facility around her erupted in panic. Hegemony officers ran between stations, shouting contradictory orders as reports flooded in from across their territory. Human colonies were declaring independence, trade routes were being cut, and mining operations were going dark as workers simply vanished into the wilderness. But the most shocking news came from Earth itself. The human government, which had maintained peaceful relations with the Galactic Council for centuries, issued a formal declaration that sent shockwaves through civilized space. The Terran Republic hereby withdraws from all existing treaties with the Galactic Hegemony, the statement read. Continued attacks on human civilians will be met with full military response. We call upon all member species to consider the true nature of the hegemony's expansion policies. General Voss stormed into the communications center where Maya worked, his face twisted with rage and confusion. How is this possible? Where did these ships come from? How did we miss the entire human military fleet? Maya looked up from her workstation with innocent eyes. I wouldn't know, sir. I'm just a technician. But inside, she was smiling. The sleeping giant had awakened, and the galaxy was about to learn what happened when you murdered Earth's children thinking there would be no consequences. The hegemony had taught humanity a valuable lesson about the true nature of galactic politics. Now it was time for humans to return the favor and teach them about the true nature of human warfare. The real weapons of Earth were not the ships or energy beams that had destroyed the 6th Fleet. The real weapon was the patience to plan for centuries, the intelligence to hide in plain sight, and the determination to never forget an injustice. The hegemony had wanted to see human weapons. Now they would learn that the most dangerous weapon humanity possessed was the willingness to use every advantage, no matter how long it took to achieve victory. General Voss sat alone in his private office, staring at tactical reports that made no sense. 3 days had passed since the destruction of the 6th Fleet, and the hegemony was falling apart. Human colonies across 12 sectors had declared independence simultaneously. Trade routes were being cut by invisible ships that struck without warning. Mining operations were going dark as human workers simply disappeared overnight. The door chimed, and Maya entered carrying her daily reports. She moved with the same quiet efficiency she had shown for months. Just another human worker going about. Her duties. Voss barely looked up as she placed the data pads on his desk. The communication logs show increased quantum transmissions from Earth, Maya said calmly. It appears the human government is coordinating with their colonial settlements. Voss rubbed his temples, trying to ease the headache that had been constant since Proxima Junction. How did we miss this? Our intelligence services assured us that humans were dependent on galactic protection. They told us Earth's military was ceremonial at best. Maya sat down across from him without invitation, her movement so natural that Voss didn't immediately realize the breach in protocol. Your intelligence services were wrong about many things, General. Something in her tone made Voss look up sharply. Maya's posture had changed subtly, her hands folded calmly in her lap, her eyes meeting his directly for the first time in months. The submissive human technician was gone, replaced by something much more dangerous. "Who are you?" Voss asked, his hand moving toward the weapon on his belt. Maya smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "I'm Maya Stonewalker of the Red Canyon Tribe, New Terra Colony. You killed my people 3 months ago because you wanted the rare earth deposits under our land. You called us primitives with ancient weapons." Voss's hand froze halfway to his, sidearm as understanding crashed over him. The human worker who had been invisible in his facility, who had processed his communications and filed his reports, who had heard every secret and seen every weakness. She had been there all along, watching and learning and planning. "You've been spying on us," he said. "I've been studying you," Maya corrected, "learning how you think, how you organize, how you make decisions. Your people see humans as useful servants, but never as potential threats. That blindness has been your greatest weakness." Maya activated a holographic display that showed real-time positions of ships throughout hegemony space. But these were not the vessels on official fleet registers. These were the shadow ships that had been hiding in plain sight for generations, disguised as cargo haulers and passenger transports and mining vessels. "Every human settlement has been a research station," Maya continued. "Every trade agreement has been reconnaissance. Every treaty has bought us time to prepare for this moment. The Terran Defense Force was never disbanded, General. It evolved." Voss stared at the display showing hundreds of ships moving through his territory like a vast, invisible net. "This is impossible. We monitor all human vessels. They're civilian craft, lightly armed at best. Your sensors see what we want them to see. A cargo transport becomes a weapons platform when you remove the fake hull plating. A passenger liner becomes a stealth ship when you activate the hidden systems. A mining vessel becomes a fortress when you stop pretending to dig for minerals." Maya stood and walked to the window overlooking the mining operation. Human workers moved through the facility with the same quiet efficiency they had shown for months. But now Voss saw them differently. They were not servants. They were soldiers in disguise, intelligence operatives who had infiltrated every level of hegemony society. "The weapons that destroyed your fleet were not new technology," Maya said. "They were human weapons, developed over centuries of hidden research. We learned to fight wars without being seen, to strike without warning, to win without anyone knowing. We were fighting." "Why?" Voss asked. "Earth had peace. You had trade agreements, protection, prosperity. Why risk everything for a few colonial settlements?" Maya turned back to face him, her eyes blazing with controlled fury. "Because you made a fundamental error about human nature. You thought peace meant weakness. You thought our willingness to negotiate meant we were incapable of violence. You were wrong." She activated another display showing the true scope of humanity's hidden military. Research stations disguised as agricultural colonies, weapons factories hidden inside trade installations, training facilities that looked like universities and hospitals, an entire civilization that had spent 2 centuries preparing for the day when their enemies would push too far. My grandmother was Lieutenant Sarah Runningbear, one of the architects of this preparation. She knew that sooner or later someone in the galaxy would decide that humans were too useful to remain free. She made sure we would be ready when that day came. Voss stood slowly, his training finally overcoming his shock. You're under arrest for espionage and treason against the Hegemony Empire." Maya laughed, and the sound was cold as winter wind. "With what authority?" "Your empire is finished, General. Even now, Hegemony High Command is receiving surrender terms from Earth's government. Your forces are outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded by enemies you never saw coming." The communication panel on Voss's desk chimed with an incoming priority: transmission. Maya gestured for him to answer it, her confidence absolute. The blue face of Admiral Corax's replacement appeared on the screen, strain and defeat evident in every line. "General Voss, by order of the Supreme Council, all Hegemony forces are to withdraw immediately from human space. We are accepting Earth's terms for cessation of hostilities. The war is over." Voss stared at the transmission in disbelief. What terms? What war? This was a minor colonial dispute. The Admiral's laugh was bitter. "Minor dispute? General, we've lost 30% of our fleet in 3 days. Human ships are appearing in our home systems. They've cut our supply lines and isolated our core worlds. The Supreme Council is calling it the fastest military collapse in galactic history." Maya watched Voss's face as the reality of humanity's true strength finally sank in. The Hegemony had built their empire by conquering species that fought conventional wars with predictable tactics. They had never faced an enemy that had spent centuries learning their weaknesses while pretending to be harmless. "The terms are simple," Maya said after the transmission ended. "Complete withdrawal from all human worlds. Reparations for the colonies you destroyed. War crimes trials for officers responsible for civilian massacres. And formal recognition that humanity is not a client species." "The Council will never agree to those terms," Voss said, but his voice lacked conviction. Maya activated one final display, showing the true extent of the Terran Defense Force. Ships were emerging from hiding places throughout the galaxy, shedding their disguises and revealing weapons that made the Hegemony's arsenal look primitive. Planets that had been dismissed as agricultural worlds were powering up orbital defense platforms. Trade stations were transforming into military fortresses. "Your council already agreed," Maya said. "The alternative was watching their homeworlds burn. Humanity gave them a demonstration of our capabilities, and they chose wisdom over pride." Voss slumped in his chair as the weight of defeat settled on his shoulders. "How long have you been planning this?" "Since the first peace treaty was signed 2 centuries ago. Every human leader knew this day would come. Sooner or later, the galaxy would test our resolve. We made sure we would be ready." Maya moved toward the door, then paused. "There's something else you should understand, General. This was not revenge for my people, though they deserve justice. This was a lesson." "What kind of lesson?" "The galaxy sees human colonies and assumes we're expanding randomly, looking for resources and living space. They don't understand that. Every world we settle is chosen for strategic value. Every human community is a fortress in disguise. Every peaceful farmer is a trained soldier. We've been surrounding you for generations, and you never noticed because you thought we were weak." Maya opened the door and stepped into the corridor where human workers were going about their daily routines. Except now Voss could see the truth. These were not workers. They were an occupying force that had infiltrated his facility so completely that they controlled every system, every communication, every defensive measure. "The Red Canyon tribe understood something your empire never learned," Maya said, looking back at him one final time. "The strong survive not by avoiding the storm, but by becoming the storm. You killed my people thinking there would be no consequences. Now you know the price of underestimating humanity." Maya walked away, leaving Voss alone with the ruins of his certainty. Around him, the mining facility continued to operate, but everything had changed. The humans were no longer hiding their true nature. They moved with military precision, spoke in tactical shorthand, and watched their former supervisors with eyes that promised consequences for any hostile action. The Hegemony evacuation began that afternoon. Ships arrived to collect personnel and equipment, while human forces maintained polite but absolute control. Maya stood on the observation deck, watching alien vessels flee the system they had conquered, with such casual arrogance. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory, words spoken during childhood that had seemed like stories then. The ancestors teach us that patience is the hunter's greatest weapon. Wait for the right moment, strike without warning, and your enemy will never see you coming. The Hegemori had learned that lesson at a cost of fleets, territories, and pride. They would return to their core worlds with a new understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. Earth's children were not clients or servants or useful primitives. They were wolves in sheep's clothing, and they had been waiting patiently for someone to make the mistake of treating them as prey. Maya received a final transmission from Colonel Tom Harrison as the last Hegemony transport departed. His face showed satisfaction mixed with regret, the expression of a soldier who had achieved victory at a terrible cost. "It's done," he said simply. "The galaxy knows what we are now. There's no going back to the old ways." Maya nodded, understanding the weight of what they had accomplished. "My people's deaths have been answered. The debt is paid." "What will you do now?" Tom asked. Maya looked out at the red canyons where her tribe had lived and died, where children had played and elders had shared wisdom under alien stars. The land was empty now, but it was free. Her people's sacrifice had purchased something precious, for all humanity. "I'm going home," she said. "Someone needs to rebuild the Red Canyon settlement. Someone needs to remember the price of our victory and teach the next generation why we must never forget how to fight." The transmission ended, leaving Maya alone with the vast silence of her recovered world. In the distance, the first ship of returning human colonists appeared in the sky, carrying families who would build new homes on ground consecrated by sacrifice and watered with tears. The Empire had killed her tribe, but in doing so, they had awakened something that would reshape the galaxy. Humanity had revealed its true nature, and the stars would never be the same.